Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Hello learners, welcome back to the course on AI in Human Resource Management. Today we try to take up one of the most important aspects when it comes to an organization, which is succession planning. Now, succession planning of employees is vital for an organization. Many a time it happens so that organizations cannot afford the recruitment or the recruitment costs in general. So they try to nurture the talent pool, and it's always better for the organization to see within rather than looking outside. See within, check the leadership potential of each candidates that are in different rank and file, and then bring them to the forefront or bring them to the hierarchy, top of the hierarchy, so that they can manage the company in a better way. So let's look into how AI specifically enables or facilitates the succession planning. For that, we have to understand what specifically succession planning is. Very quickly we'll do that. Then we'll look into AI, its importance in actually enhancing the succession planning. What are the predictive analytics that is going on behind succession planning? What could be the knowledge transfer potentials with respect to the inclusion of AI in succession planning? So all those things we'll look into that. I'm Dr. Abraham Cyril Issac. I'm an assistant professor at the School of Business, Indian Institute of Technology, Guwahati. Now straight away moving into today's topic, which is AI in career succession planning of employees. Let's start with understanding what do you mean by career succession planning. When you talk about any individual within an organization, his or her progress across the organization is vital, and something which becomes very much important is the succession planning in that particular context. So career succession planning is nothing but a strategic process. It is a long-term process to identify and develop internal candidates who have the potential to fill key roles as they become available. Now, this approach ensures that the business continuity is there by preparing for transitions in leadership and critical positions, whether due to retirements, resignations, or even some unforeseen events. So, the goal is to create a talent pipeline that allows the organization to maintain operational effectiveness and achieve their long-term objectives. Now, when you look into the succession planning, the key elements of that, we have to understand that specifically every organization needs to identify the critical roles, because if you, it's akin to tell the same thing. If you do not know that the problem exists, or you are not even acknowledging that, then how can you solve it? So similarly, we have to identify certain critical roles in the beginning itself. So determine where essential positions are there, and essential positions which are vital for operations and strategic goals. So you look into organizations capacity in doing that. So mostly or typically leadership roles or specialized positions that are vital in enhancing the organization's competitiveness, that has to be identified. The next step is to assess the talent. When you're looking into the assessment of talent, this assessment may include performance reviews, may include skill evaluations, may include career aspirations. But that said, you have to, once you have made an assessment of the talent, you have to develop plans. When you're talking about once, let's say, potential successors are identified, tailored development plans are created to prepare them for the future roles. Unless and otherwise, it is meaningless to actually make a pipeline or a pool of the succession or successors actually coming. So this when you are looking into developing the plans, it may include training program, it may include mentorship opportunities, It may include job rotations that provide necessary skills and experience. So rather than putting one person in a particular department for, let's say, a decade or so, rather than giving them the opportunity for job rotation, having a clear development plan would be much suited for this succession planning. Another important aspect would be monitoring and evaluation. When you look into continuous monitoring of the succession planning, it is vital. Organizations should regularly evaluate the effectiveness of their plans and make adjustments as needed based on changing business needs or employee performance. We also have to understand that as we monitor and evaluate, we have to go for the engagement of all the stakeholders. Now, when you are looking into monitoring and evaluation, you have to understand that effective succession planning requires the involvement of all the key stakeholders, including senior management and HR professionals. So, their support is vital, their support is essential, their support is crucial for implementing development programs and ensuring alignment with the organizational goals. Now, let's look into the importance of career succession planning also very quickly. As I mentioned in the beginning itself, we do have business continuity as one of the foremost factor that is underlying the importance of the career succession planning. By preparing successors for key roles, organizations can ensure a smooth transition during leadership changes, minimizing disruptions in operations. There is also risk mitigation that is coming into picture. Unexpected departures of, let's say, key leaders, it can pose significant risk. There is no doubt about it. A well-structured succession plan enables organizations to respond proactively in those situations. So that is another significant aspect. It also has a role to play in enhancing employee engagement. When you're looking into employees, when typically they see their organization is committed to their career development through structured succession planning, it fosters loyalty, it fosters engagement. So this is one way to keep the employees loyal to the organization, in fact, I'll use the word retain the employees with a more, significant fervor or a positive attitude. Now, there is another possibility of knowledge retention. Recollect the previous discussions on institutional memory. So, succession planning helps critical knowledge within the organization by ensuring that experienced employees mentor potential successor. And similarly, it also builds a leadership pipeline. Organizations can cultivate a pool of qualified candidates ready to step into the leadership roles as and when required, ensuring long-term stability, long-term growth. So this is what we generally see in terms of succession planning. Now let's look into what is or what was happening with respect to the succession planning. What are the traditional approaches to succession planning? The first and the foremost one would be manual process. Now, before diving into AI-driven succession planning, it is vital to comprehend the traditional methods. Historically, if you ask me, succession planning was a manual, time-consuming process that often took place annually. So it relied heavily on subjective assessments from managers and HR professionals who were associated with the particular individuals, which certainly introduced biases into the decision-making process. So the primary goals of succession planning were identify the potential future leaders within the organization, preparing these individuals for leadership roles through training and development, and also ensuring smooth transitions when key positions became vacant. So this was the workflow of, if I can use the word, workflow of the traditional approach towards succession planning. Now, when you look into the traditional approach, there are certain limitations which we cannot outweigh. These are mainly bias and subjectivity. You look into managerial biases that can affect the identification of high potential employees. We have seen different case studies. We are hearing in the news and the media specifically, there are certain biases that generally prevent. I'm not talking only about the gender bias, but a lot of biases that generally prevent high potential employees or high potential individuals to actually coming up to the leadership positions. Often, decision making is influenced by personal relationships or familiarity rather than objective performance data, and that is the biggest trouble there. When you look into the limitations, we also have a limitation with respect to lack of real-time data. Now, when you look into the traditional succession planning, it's often an annual exercise, as I mentioned, making it difficult for the organizations to react quickly to sudden leadership changes. So, what happens? It does not consider the day-to-day developments in employee performance, what is happening in terms of the skill acquisition or the learning process. So, there is a real-time data unavailability that is creating this problem. We also see that there is some static skill development. Let's say leadership development programs under traditional models are very generic and they are not personalized. Here is the relevance and the importance of AI going to come in. Employees often receive the same set of training irrespective of their individual development needs, strengths or future aspirations. So when you are looking into such situations, what we observe is that there is a possibility of overlooking non-visible talent. Please note, ladies and gentlemen, traditional methods tend to focus on individuals already in leadership or visible roles, leaving out those who might possess great leadership potential but are not yet recognized for it. So, these are the certain limitations. These are the certain limitations of the traditional succession planning. Now, let's look into the crux of today's discussion, which is the role of AI in career succession planning. Now, AI brings a paradigm shift in succession planning by addressing the challenges of the traditional methods. By leveraging, let's say, the machine learning algorithms, the NLP, predictive analytics, AI transforms succession planning into a dynamic, continuous process that can adapt to real-time changes in the workforce and the business environment. So, when you look into AI, its role in career succession planning, we have to first understand how it enhances the succession planning. Let's look into that. Now, when you look into data-driven decision making as one of the significant factor, please note AI eliminates much of the subjectivity that often accompanies human decision making in succession planning, a point which we are repeatedly emphasizing. AI systems analyze vast amount of data, including, let's say, employee performance, their experience, their engagement levels, which otherwise was never considered, to make objective recommendations on potential leaders. So, when you are looking into such situations, this data-driven approach ensures that the decisions are based on evidence rather than intuition. Now, there is also a possibility of real-time skill tracking and talent analytics. Now, this is vital because AI-driven platforms can continuously monitor and update employee skills and performance data in real time. Let's take an example. Let's say we have seen in the previous sessions platforms like Eightfold.ai that track employees' skill progression, their learning patterns, identifying skill gaps and suggesting appropriate training. So, this becomes an input to what training should be essentially given to the particular individual under consideration. So, please note that this certainly ensures that succession planning is a continuous proactive process, allowing organizations to respond to changes in workforce dynamics quickly. Now, there is another option of personalized development or another factor where AI becomes an enhancement or facilitates the enhancement. When you're looking into the personalized development, I'm looking into the personalized leadership development specifically because we are talking about the succession planning. Now, AI provides individualized career development paths by analyzing each employee's strengths, their weaknesses, and the career goals. So, it can recommend specific training programs as we have already seen, mentorship opportunities, or job rotations tailored to an individual's needs. So, increasing the chances of successfully developing the leadership capabilities. Another significant aspect is the predictive analytics. When you look into the advanced AI capabilities, you see that AI can typically forecast future leadership success by identifying patterns in data from the past leaders. So, this predictive capability helps organizations focus on employees who have demonstrated traits that are associated with successful leadership. So, it allows organizations to actually foresee potential risk, if any, such as, let's say, employee leaving the organization, or let's say plan for leadership succession in advance. So, this foresightedness, this is what is enabled by advanced AI capability. We then come to one of the most significant factor, which is knowledge transfer. One of the biggest challenges in succession planning, without doubt, is ensuring that critical knowledge is not lost when key employees leave. This discussion we had in the previous lecture. If you recollect, we have talked about the institutional memory and all. So, AI can help facilitate knowledge transfer by analyzing documents, emails, and other work-related communications and creating comprehensive knowledge databases. So, these databases ensure that successors have access to the information they need to step into leadership roles effectively. So, this is what could have a greater impact when it comes to the introduction of advanced AI capabilities in HRM specific to knowledge transfer. Now, let's look into the AI-driven succession planning as a process. AI transforms succession planning from a static to a dynamic process. So, you are looking into real-time succession planning. Let's say one of the most significant benefits AI brings to succession planning is typically the ability to shift from a static annual exercise to a dynamic real-time process. So, AI-driven platforms allow organizations to continuously assess employee skills and performance, enabling them to make succession planning decisions on an ongoing basis rather than just waiting for their annual reviews. So, let's take an example. AI can track employees' development in real time by monitoring their project contributions or how much they have achieved in terms of the learning, so learning achievements or even some of the performance metrics. So, when a key position becomes available, the system can immediately recommend the most qualified internal candidate, reducing the time and effort needed for leadership transition. So, this real-time approach is particularly valuable in fast-changing business environments where agility and adaptability are crucial. Now, let's look into identifying the leadership potential. So, what is the role of AI in identifying leadership potential? So, when you talk about this, please note one of the AI's most transformative application in succession planning is the ability to identify this leadership potential. So, in the past, in the traditional method, high potential employees were often identified through subjective assessments by managers. So, it was not objective. You had a good rapport, you had a good goodwill with your manager. Sometimes it is seen in a negative sense also, but mostly when you are looking into as a person who is in the good books, if I can use the word, of the manager, you generally get promoted or you have a clear succession planning being demarcated for you. But those who are not like that, or those who are actually looking into, let's say it this needs. So, when you are looking into the traditional way, traditional approach of succession planning, you generally see, as I already mentioned, that if you are in the good books of certain managers, whom you are reporting to, you generally have a possibility of, going up the hierarchy, or there is a possibility that, you are being taken care of in terms of the succession planning. But what happens to the maximum lot who put their effort? They have certain objective performance metrics, but since the system itself is not objectively analyzing their performance, many a time what happens that they are not identified, they are not seen in a positive light. So this is where especially the objectivity is where the AI brings the whole system, or tries to modify the whole systems and make it more objective. So you look into the objectivity of data, you look into reducing the biases, you look into a comprehensive analysis. It is all about getting in the right person with respect to the merit. So AI enables you to avoid all the possible biases which you have in terms of selecting, or maybe recruiting, or maybe taking up a person to another level. And there is also a possibility of, let's say, some particular objective measures, the work time, or let's say the revenue generated, or let's say the sales made, or whatever with respect to the top line or bottom line, whatever the company is focused on. So all these aspects typically give the individual a certain level of confidence. Yes, that if I work for this company, the organization has an objective measure, and if I do this 1, 2, 3, 4, it is pretty sure that I'm going to make it to the next level, unlike an organization which is maybe which rotates around the subjectivity, the subjective assessment of the manager. So many a time what happens, if you are not in the good books of the manager, you tend to fall out of the favor, and you generally don't get the desired promotion. So this is typically the role of AI, or this is the beauty of AI. Now let's look into AI leadership identification methods specifically. You look into AI leadership specifically, you will see that one of the critical aspect is the comprehensive data analysis. AI systems typically analyzes large data sets including performance reviews, project outcomes, employee engagement scores to identify patterns that suggest leadership potential. So these systems look for indicators such as innovation, collaboration, problem solving, and emotional intelligence. We also have unbiased recognition. When we talk about unbiased recognition, AI helps remove bias from the succession planning process, as I have mentioned. So if you compare with the traditional method, AI evaluates employees based solely on data, ensuring that high potential individuals from underrepresented groups are also considered. So this certainly tries to remove the bias. You also have some predictive leadership traits. What are they? By analyzing historical data from the past leaders, AI can identify the traits and skills and correlate them with the leadership success. So this certainly allows the system to recommend employees who exhibit these traits even if they have not yet held formal positions or leadership roles. Now, they also have a possibility of succession pathways for non-obvious candidates. What happens to them? AI can identify the leadership potential in employees who may not be on the traditional leadership paths. Let's take an example. A data scientist with exceptional problem solving abilities might not have been considered for leadership in the past. However, AI can recognize the strategic value of such skills and recommend a leadership development plan for them. Then this is what AI brings the difference in all about. And this is what the AI difference is all about. Now, when you look into personalized leadership development plan, which we have just now mentioned, leadership development has historically been a one size fits all. That has been the traditional approach. There is no doubt, being frank, that has been, and in many organizations even that is still going on, with employees often receiving the same training regardless of their specific strengths, their specific weaknesses or career goals. So AI changes this by offering personalized development plans that align with both the organization needs and the employees' aspirations. So based on this, we see that there is a possibility of tailored learning programs. AI innovation, it introduces personalized development plans, as I mentioned, where you can have tailored growth. Now, tailored learning is where the whole difference is. See, I am being trained for something I am weak on, or something which can enhance my strength, which has never been my strength, and I don't have any particular aptitude in that. if I'm getting the training for the namesake, I might be continuing that, but it does not add any particular value to me, and that's the fact. Now, when you look into AI, it analyzes each employee's skills, the performance history, and future career goals to recommend personalized learning opportunities. So, this might include, let's say, specific leadership training courses, job rotations, or mentorship programs, as we discussed. So, by tailoring development plans to individual needs, AI ensures that employees receive the most relevant training, increasing the likelihood of leadership success. Then there is again a possibility of mentorship matching. What is that? Mentorship is all about guiding, about coaching. So AI can facilitate mentorship programs by matching employees with mentors based on their career goals and development needs. So additionally, let's say AI powered virtual coaches can provide something like continuous feedback and guidance, helping employees develop leadership skills in real time. There is also possibility of skill tracking. AI systems continuously monitor employees' progress. So this allows the HR to adjust development plans as needed, ensuring that the employees stay on track for future leadership roles. There is also the possibility of gamified learning, something which we have discussed in the previous module. Some AI platforms incorporate gamification elements into the leadership development programs, making the whole learning process itself very engaging. So, employees can earn points or badges for completing leadership training modules, encouraging continuous development. Now, let's look into the most critical aspect, knowledge transfer with AI. As we have seen, a major concern in succession planning is the loss of institutional knowledge when experienced leaders leave or they retire. So AI can help capture, it can help organize and transfer knowledge from senior employees to successor, and this is vital in industries where key insights, strategies, or let's say business relationships are not easily documented but are embedded in years of experience. Now, how AI facilitates knowledge transfer? This is vital. Let's look into AI driven knowledge bases. What do they do? AI can automatically compile, analyze the emails, documents, and communication patterns of key employees. I've already mentioned that. Using natural language processing, AI can organize this information into knowledge repositories that are easily accessible to successors. There is a possibility of expert systems. AI can create this that simulate the decision-making process of departing leaders who are moving out. So let's take an example. AI might track, let's say, how a retiring CEO approached certain business decisions, helping the successor understand the rationale behind those decisions. Many a time that is not being understood or that is not being captured. Then there is also a possibility of mentorship and knowledge sharing. AI can also facilitate the matching of retiring employees with the successor or potential leaders for mentorship. So during the period, the departing employees can share critical insights facilitated by AI-driven tools that track the transfer of knowledge. Similarly, we see AI's role in predictive analytics in terms of succession planning. Predictive analytics is often used as one of the most powerful applications of AI in succession planning. So, by analyzing, let's say, historical data, AI can predict which employees are most likely to succeed in leadership roles, as well as when critical positions might become vacant. So, based on that, let's look into what is the process that AI uses in terms of the predictive analytics. Now, when you look into this process, the leadership success predictors happens to be the foremost idea. AI systems analyze past performance data, looking for patterns that correlate with successful leadership. An example would be AI model might, let's say, identify those leaders who had diverse project experience or cross-functional roles perform better in leadership positions than those who did not. So, by identifying these predictors, AI help organizations focus on the employees most likely to succeed in leadership. Another important aspect would be the employee attrition forecasting. This is vital because attrition many a time eats away lots of resources and puts a big constraint on the organization itself. So AI can predict which employees are likely to leave, enabling HR to plan for leadership vacancies in advance. So factors such as employee engagement scores, job satisfaction surveys, and career progression data can be analyzed to forecast potential departures. Another significant aspect would be scenario modeling or scenario planning. AI can model various succession planning scenarios, allowing organizations to explore different succession paths altogether. So, for instance, the system can simulate the impact of promoting a particular employee to a leadership role versus leaving that position open for hiring, or let's say hiring externally, etc. So, this typically helps HR make more of informed decisions. Now, having seen extensively the role of AI, let's again look into the challenges and limitations of AI in succession planning. So, most of our sessions we try to conclude with this. So, despite all these advantages, that's the unfortunate statement I have to make. There are also challenges and limitations. AI is not a perfect solution, please note that, and requires careful implementation to avoid potential pitfalls. So, when you look into AI, it is not a flawless solution. Implementing AI in succession planning requires careful consideration, and let's look into those challenges. The first and the foremost one, obviously, it would be the bias, as we have been dealing with this bias angle for quite some time. AI can reduce human bias, that is one school of thought, but it is not immune to bias itself. When you're looking into cases like if the data used to train AI models is biased, as I already mentioned, the recommendations generated by AI can perpetuate existing inequalities. Let's take an example. If an organization's past leaders were predominantly from a particular demographic group, the AI system might prioritize similar candidates for future leadership roles also. So, this bias will be inherently carried forward. Another significant factor would be the data quality and availability when it comes to the challenges. AI's effectiveness totally depends on the quality and the quantity of data it has to access. It has access to. Incorrect and incomplete data can lead to flawed predictions or recommendations. So, organizations need to ensure that they have robust data collection and management systems in place before implementing AI-driven succession planning. There is another possibility of resistance and over-reliance. Employees, I generally talk about this inertia in some of the classes. Employees and leaders may be resistant to AI-driven systems, especially if they feel that decisions are being made by machines rather than humans. So, to overcome this, the potential possibility would be organizations must emphasize that AI is a tool to support decision making, not replace the human judgment. And again, while AI can provide valuable insights, please note it is important not to rely solely on AI for succession planning. Another significant aspect would be human oversight, which is crucial to interpreting AI generated data and ensuring that decisions align with the organization's culture and strategic goal. Now, when you look into how we can address these AI challenges in succession planning, we look into bias mitigation. Bias mitigation is just to train the AI models on inclusive data and conduct regular audits, which will be critical, especially regular audits of AI systems that can identify them. Another significant factor would be data management. Invest in robust data management. Organizations should do this. This includes tracking employee performance, skills and engagement over time. There is also a possibility of human AI collaboration, which can actually address the AI challenge in succession planning. Let's say HR professionals should be involved in interpreting AI insights and making the final decisions on succession planning. When you look into the succession planning, how we address it, we have to also see the best practices related to that. When you are typically focusing on AI, this can be a very insightful discussion. We have to have clear objectives before implementing AI. Organizations should define the clear objectives for succession planning efforts. Let's take an example. Are they looking to improve diversity in leadership? or what is the thought process? Is it to reduce turnover, or what is the school of thought? It is to identify high potential employees earlier itself. So define these goals that will help guide the implementation of AI system. There's also a requirement to invest in high quality data. We have seen that as a challenge, the quality and quantity of data. So the accuracy of AI models totally depends on the quality. So when you are looking into data, organizations should invest in systems that can track employee performance, engagement, and skill development in real time. So this data will form the foundation of AI-driven succession planning. There is also a need to integrate human oversight. While AI can provide valuable insights, it should not replace human judgment. HR professionals and organization leaders must be involved in interpreting AI-generated recommendations and ensuring they align with the company's culture and goal. Also, we have to foster a culture of trust in AI, which I have time and again mentioned, and also the continuous learning and improvement is vital. So this ensures that the AI system continues to provide relevant, accurate recommendations as the organization typically evolves. So when you look into the key best practices of AI-driven succession planning, you have to see that the first and the foremost one would be to look into the clear objectives. Now finally, let's look into the future of AI in succession planning. Please note, as AI continues to evolve, its role in succession planning will likely expand in the future. So AI systems could become even more integrated into strategic planning process, providing insights that go beyond the individual employees and addressing broader workforce trends. So when you look into the evolution of AI capabilities, there is no doubt it will be capable to transform succession planning into a more proactive and comprehensive process altogether. So organizations need to embrace this for successful succession planning. When you are looking into the emerging trends in AI for succession planning, we can definitely see at this point in time, again, with a word of caution, this is ever evolving. The evolution is happening. So at this point in time, and I would like to explicitly state that, Ryder, we can look into integration with emerging technologies. AI may be integrated with other technologies such as virtual reality to create more immersive leadership development programs. Let's take an example. VR simulations, virtual reality simulations, could allow employees to practice leadership scenarios in a controlled AI-driven environment. We can also use sentiment analysis. AI or future AI systems may use the sentiment analysis to gauge employee satisfaction and engagement more accurately. Now, this could help organizations identify the leadership candidates who not only perform well, but are also aligned with the company's values and culture. Now, AI can also be a strategic partner. Now, this is vital, and this is where we conclude today's lecture. As AI continues to improve, it will play a more prominent role in strategic planning, helping organizations predict workforce trends, identify future skill needs, and make informed decisions about talent management. So please note, when you look into AI, its role in succession planning, we have extensively seen what AI can do, what are the different roles that AI can take up, what are the different possibilities that AI can bring in. But we have also seen the challenges it can bring in with those particular advantages. So please take a measured movement. We have seen what could be the future of AI in terms of succession planning, but this is what I am mentioning with respect to the data I am having right now. As I mentioned, AI is ever evolving, and there might be a possibility that more prominent and proficient role of AI can be seen in succession planning in the coming years. But then let's hope and look forward to that. We'll come up with more details of AI in human resource management with another module. Till then, take care. Bye-bye.